Hi, I'm Tristan Ferland Milewski, director of the film Dreamboat, which is running in the section Panorama.
Ich bin schwul, ich konnte mir das nicht aussuchen. Ich hatte Glück. Ich kann so lange jung und knackig sein wollen, wie es mir Spaß macht.
I left Palestine because I had problems with the police there. Because I'm gay. I don't hate my country, but I appreciate Belgium because without Belgium I didn't have the second chance to live.
I'm 32 now and I have never ever been into a relationship, and that is something not good. I have worked very hard in the way I want to look when I'm in the boat. This is a golden opportunity for me to find love.
My gay wishes, it was like more virtual than real. So if I had any like sex dreams, it was more like conversation, like chats on internet than proper meets.
Welcome, Tristan Ferland Milewski, director of Dreamboat. Nice to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for welcoming me here.
What fascinated you so much about the topic of a gay cruise that you decided to make a documentary about it?
Well, I'm generally, as a director, fascinated by microcosms. And of course, you can imagine this boat with the 3,000 men is a microcosm. And the interesting part of microcosm, in my opinion, is that they, on one hand, they set up their own rules and norms and normativities, but on the other hand, they also reflect the norms or they reflect aspects of the bigger society. So, because we all, of course, bring our society, our background with us. And there's people from countries that are repressive, and there's many people that meet in this microcosm, and this, of course, is like the big boat of many stories.
I was thinking about when I saw your film, how did you convince the company that they let you film on the board?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it was really a lot of preparation and work of trust together with the company, because you have to see it's like the organizer of the of this gay cruise, and like the company itself, the cruise ship company. They, until now, don't want to be associated with this. I mean, they like to take the money from the gays, but they don't want to be associated with it. Okay. But, of course, the organizer, he was more like, of course, also he had many requests before, but we were the first one he actually really allowed to come on the boat. And because, of course, it's a big responsibility. So you have 89 nations there, and many of them come from repressive countries, or they might not be out, or whatever, just want to let loose on this time on the boat. And so what we did, in fact, I mean, I was 1 year before on a research trip there.
So you went on the boat, actually?
I went before,
okay.
Yeah. And we also, with a little camera team, so we already did a bit of footage there. But, and then there's a Facebook group, the closed Facebook group of all passengers and future passengers. So what I made sure, of course, is to contact the group and to make visible that we do a shooting here, and to get in touch with all passengers, so that everybody was really could make sure if he doesn't want to be in the film, he will not be in the film. And I made sure they know what the film is about, and that is also a very respectful film. And we were also on the boat really approachable for everybody. We had a visible camera, we were not like with a little camera. We were afterwards approachable, because of course it's a big responsibility that you have to take. And I think this was then in the end what also convinced the organizer to let us. He saw the film and he's very happy with it and supports us afterwards too.
That's great to hear. I mean, I wanted to ask you anyways about the cast. I mean, I would call it a cast because like you didn't choose them, the people that you were close with the camera randomly. So you did. How did you do the casting for the characters of this documentary?
Yes, of course, this is also was of course a big search. For me, the criteria were, of course, it has to be a person, or there has to be persons for whom the trip on the boat also is an emotional trip. It has a personal, emotional meaning. Can we cut this again? Sorry.
Kein Thema.
Okay, once again.
Warte, ganz kurz, wir machen einen kurzen Schnitt und dann fangen wir nochmal an. Genau.
So the criteria for finding the people, for me it was important that it's persons for whom to go on the boat has also emotional meaning for different reasons, and also to have people from different backgrounds and relationship status. And so I found them partly on the year before, because there's also people that are regular cruisers.
So every year they go on the cruise. Okay.
Yeah, and on the other hand, it was people that I met through this Facebook group by announcing that I'm interested to do this film, and then I talked to many people until I found this final beautiful cast.
So actually it was like social media what helped you to find the cast, and
yes,
the actual cruising what you did a year in advance.
Exactly,
for
but
shooting.
Absolutely, yeah. But of course, then I visited them at home, and I visited them. We had Skype conversations, so it was, of course, also a journey.
A very close relation in advance. I see. I mean, you just mentioned that you had like so many passengers from different nations, but the passengers' expectations had also been very different. Some were looking for love and found sex, and others were looking for sex and even didn't have sex. So, and I did wonder, how was the atmosphere on board in general? If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you can imagine you have like this limited amount of time. You have 7 days, a countdown of 7 days. Okay. Yes, yes. And in this time, people come with, of course, some come, for example, also from restrictive countries. Everything has to happen in these 7 days. It's a big pressure and a big expectation also. So you have this biorhythm of the boat, so people come with huge expectations. Then in the middle there might be a bit of a down or a hangover from too much partying, and in the end, you know, you have, or for me it was very important also to have like a positive outlook in the end, because I think there's so many gay films where it's still like, oh, it's such a tragedy to be gay, it's terrible, it's a burden, we have to all suffer from it, and yes, and this is why we have to somehow find ways to cope with it. No, I wanted to give a positive and self-confident out view on this. And yeah, the atmosphere is, of course, how do you say?
Charged, probably.
Charged, yes, by this expectation and influenced by all these expectations that come from the people being on board. And it's a pressure. It's a pressure, of course, because it's a market also a bit, you know.
Yeah, we can talk about this maybe later. I mean, but what I felt like clearly that for everybody that's on this cruise, the queer family is a very important substitute family. On the one hand side, I had the idea that it makes things very easy, like there are common rules and like there's an understanding and you don't have to be ashamed. It's like clear, everybody is gay, so don't have to fear any like people that will like okay, once again. So, I mean, it was quite clear on the cruise that for everybody that has been on the ship, the queer community has been a substitute family. On the one hand side, it made it very easy to connect, and I had at the same time the feeling that it made it sometimes very hard to get connected. Can you explain why?
Yeah, exactly. This is, I think, a very interesting aspect that I also I hope that transmits in the film a bit, that it has this double bind. On one hand, of course, and I think this is something that is very important, you have really this bond that connects everybody on this boat.
Right away,
I always
yeah.
on this when I started to get into this topic, I was always thinking like we are all a bit like kicked out of paradise for different reasons. You know, of course, in restrictive countries, people had to leave their countries because it's life-threatening or dangerous. Other people had maybe in less restrictive countries still had to leave their village or had to break with their family, or it's simply just like the norms, the normativities of our societies don't really apply. The offers you have to go, like in the normativities of life, are different. So you have to kind of make your own choices and set your own normativities. And so we all had this moment of being a bit kicked out of paradise. And there is like this paradise regained. We kind of meet again and create our own paradise. But of course, there's also downsides to this paradise. And as I said, there's on one hand, we go out of the normativities. On the other hand, there's normativities brought onto the boat or created. And also, we cannot deny that we all more or less come from a heteronormative and patriarch societies. And
unfortunately, yes, yeah.
Bring this onto the boat, and like the ideas of masculinity. What is masculine? What is a good man? A good man has to be very masculine, very muscular. And why is it worse to be feminine? Why is it worse to be a feminine man? And are you? What is feminine? What is masculine? All these kind of things, you know. So these two things, and also combined with the thing that for many persons it's like, this 7 days is like the days of freedom. So you can imagine that you come with a lot of emotions there, and what happens in the end, you get confronted with yourself, where you are in life, what you look for in life. Are you looking the right way for the right things? And what do you really want? What do you desire? All these questions arise. Questions that in the end are valid for everybody of us, I think. And this is what I find very important in the end, is that all these questions, these ultimate life questions, are questions that are not only relevant for the gay community, or, I mean, a part of the gay community that is, of course, doesn't represent the whole gay community. It's very, has many
diverse, yeah.
Very diverse. But anyway, these topics are relevant for all of us, I think, especially in a capitalist society.
You just like mentioned the idea of like the image, or like the stereotypical image of a male identity that seemed to be very still like valid on the cruise. So even on this trip, clearly what you said, the passengers were under pressure to fulfill this like kind of image. And I mean, what was like astonishing to me, like especially that of a straight man. So people really like suffered from that. I mean, this is like quite clearly what comes out. I had the idea. So what were your impressions on that?
Of course, I mean, to to fulfill this image of a straight man might come along, not for everybody, but might come along for some men to deny themselves. And of course, I mean, just purely to keep your body fit, to stay young, to stay muscular, it's hard work. I never felt so untrained and unfit. Okay. I was like, okay.
So you felt like a bit like marginalized by your body?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I was there for another reason. But of course, it's something that can apply, of course, to everybody. You know?
At the end of the film, it's very clear that every single protagonist, and like all the other passengers probably too, did personally grow on this trip. Can you give an example of the most, of the example, what did you impress the most?
Oh, I think they all impressed me, my protagonists. They all impressed me because they all, in a different way, grew or already had something, brought some personal stories and personal lives on the boat that are very impressive, and for me they are all heroes. They are all strong men, even in their vulnerability. Or also I'm very grateful that they showed me their vulnerability, because this makes them strong. And so I was impressed by all the story. I mean, also, of course, I mean, if you see Deepanka, who comes from a repressive country, India, and now lives in Dubai, and before he came here, he made sure to out himself in front of, for the premiere, in work, in front of his family.
So and this is the result of the cruise?
Yeah, so he said, because I mean, he's someone who really, he's a, you know, quite very successful businessman, you know, and he really showed himself very, very, like in his life questions. And he said this was such an important revelation and journey for me, and it made him really go to this next step in his life. And he was also at the premiere, and it was really, really touching. And he had, in fact, a good feedback from his family and his work.
Wow, that's impressive.
But still, he has to go back to Dubai. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, so he's very courageous, and I think he did. He feels he has done the right step, and he's much more liberated. Also, Ramsey, of course, who you know, of course, is now a Belgian how do you say, citizen.
Yeah.
But still, you know,
originally from Palestine.
From Palestine, and it's also something to speak up, to say something about the country and not hide, because in Palestine it's like officially there's no law against gays, but exactly this gives the freedom for harassment and completely arbitrary arresting of people. So it's like on the surface it seems like, oh, there's nothing dangerous, but it's so dangerous to be gay there. And so they all, of course, for different reasons, were very courageous. Philippe, who kind of was with in his wheelchair, confronting all the body culture also that also is on the boat, and was completely welcomed there, and you know, did climbing and swimming.
Yeah, this was like a very I was impressed that he was climbing the wall, even though he can't walk.
Yeah.
I see. So one last question to you, Tristan. Did you grow by yourself on this trip too?
It's a good question. I think yes, of course. In many ways. I mean, first of all, in a documentary work, you always grow through, because in the end, you always, at some point, you come to the basic questions of life. And you, when you enter a topic and all this kind of research, all the conversation with different people entering their life, really also having the gift of them giving their trust to you, this makes you grow and also question, of course, where am I in life, and also what kind of gay man do I want to be. Yeah, so all these kind of things arise, and you recheck the settings of your life. And yes, it was for me also big. We all go on a kind of a journey, like everybody in the team. We had kind of 24-hour shoots, you know, so it was 7 days and 7 nights, and you don't even know when it's day, when it's night, where are we? And so we grew all together. It was a wonderful experience.
Tristan, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
And good luck for your screenings, and for sure for the Teddy Award.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. Hi, I'm Tristan Ferland Milewski, director of the film Dreamboat, which is running in the section Panorama.
Ich bin schwul, ich konnte mir das nicht aussuchen. Ich hatte Glück. Ich kann so lange jung und knackig sein wollen, wie es mir Spaß macht.
Of course, you can imagine this boat with the 3,000 men is a microcosm, and the interesting part of microcosm, in my opinion, is that they, on one hand, they set up their own rules and norms and normativities, but on the other hand, they also reflect the norms of the, or they reflect aspects of the bigger society. So, because we all, of course, bring our society, our background with us. And there's people from countries.
It was more like conversation, like chats on internet than proper meets.
Welcome, Tristan Ferland Milewski, director of Dreamboat. Nice to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for welcoming me here.
What fascinated you so much about the topic of a gay cruise that you decided to make a documentary about it?
Well, I'm generally, as a director, fascinated by microcosms, and
I left Palestine because I had problems with the police there. Because I'm gay. I don't hate my country, but I appreciate Belgium because without Belgium, I didn't have the second chance to live.
I'm 32 now, and I have never ever been into a relationship. And that is something not good. I have worked very hard in the way I want to look when I'm in the boat. This is a golden opportunity for me to find love.
My gay wishes, it was like more virtual than real. So if I had any like sex dreams,